Welcome to our program in a nutshell. I'm Bob Savakinas. Today we have a very special guest, someone who is going to spend some time with us and celebrate the Halloween season and talk about his career, actor Dan Yeager. Dan has been a lover of horror movies all of his life. He grew up watching classic horror movies on TV in the Cleveland, Ohio area. He loves the classics, including the literature of Poe, Shelley, and Stoker. Eventually, this love of horror blossomed into a career as an actor. Early on, he was told by horror icon Robert Quarry from the Count Yorga movie, Vampire, that when you went to Hollywood, you would make a living playing monsters, and you can. He achieved the icon status himself by eventually donning the mask of Leatherface in 2013's Texas Chainsaw 3D. His performance was well received as a worthy successor to the legacy of the original, created in 1974 by Gunnar Hansen. Mr. Yeager's attention to detail in realizing the character, now older and in a drastically different circumstances, he is embraced by fans around the world. He is also involved in the filmmaking process and writing. He's influenced primarily by Stanley Kubrick, David Lean, Peter Bogdanovich, Francis Ford Coppola. His understanding of films means it's a storytelling, and it's the product of years of studying. His writing is well developed in structure and depth of story. On a personal note, I would just like to say I met Dan a few years ago, and we have become friends. Dan has never forgotten northeastern Pennsylvania, and in the last several years, he's made several visits to our area, and in these visits, he supported many of our local attractions, places like the Electric City, Lackawanna County Trolley Museum, Steamtown National Historic Site, the Lackawanna Historical Society, just to name a few. And his support brings out thousands of people. And I'm very proud to say, Dan, welcome back to Scranton, Pennsylvania. Tell us a little bit about what brings you to northeastern Pennsylvania, to Scranton, several times in the last several years.
Well, thank you for your kind words, Bob. My love of you.
Thank you.
and everybody in Scranton. I mean, it's the people. I mean, it's the people of Scranton that make it special. I mean, it's a great town, a lot of history. It's a beautiful place. It has trains. I love trains. And yeah, I don't know. I just felt a connection. I grew up in a tiny town in Ohio, just south of Cleveland. And I don't know, when the very first time, I think it was 7 years ago, we met. Very first time I came here, I don't know, I just felt a connection with it. I don't know why. But it's got everything I like.
You're a legendary character of Leatherface. What made you get into filmmaking and looking at a character like that, other than your love of horror movies?
Yeah, it was weird. I saw the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre in a re-release in 1981. My family had moved the year before to Las Vegas, Nevada. And then by some bizarre, circumstance, a notice in the newspaper said they were going to show this movie, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I said to all my friends, I said, I don't know who made the mistake, but this movie's been banned. It's supposed to be, oh my God, we've got to go see this movie, before they realize what they've done. Let's go see it. And so we went and saw it at this drive-in in Las Vegas. And I was still in high school. This was, 1981. And I remember watching this movie and just being, fascinated by it. I've always loved horror movies, but this thing was something different. My mom bought a VCR not long after that, and I went out and bought 2 tapes for my library. One was Eraserhead by David Lynch, and the other was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I wore those tapes out. I'm sure they got trashed. They're no longer in existence. I certainly don't have them. But like I say, but I've thought back about that time, and sitting on the hood of my buddy's car watching this movie, I never would have thought in a million years that, oh, that's something somebody does. I really got interested in film. I finally found online a copy of this movie. It was a short film, a Yugoslavian short from 1977, I believe. And it's properly translated The Mallet. But when I saw it, which was on some Academy Awards special back in the late 70s on TV, they had translated it as The Hammer. And so I was always looking for The Hammer. I thought that was, but it turns out I had the wrong name. And so anyway, just recently I finally found that film. And that film was the one that really made me start to think about film as an art form, you know, as a pursuit. And I'm not sure, now I can't remember your question, so I probably have just been rambling about.
We were just looking at getting yourself involved in the film industry. And
Oh, yeah.
Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah.
And you know, from the things that I've read, I mean, the original Texas Chainsaw 1974 with, as I did the intro, the legendary Gunnar Hansen. And
A good friend.
your Texas Chainsaw was basically a sequel to that movie, and it seemed as if Gunnar Hansen seemed to be very supportive of your portrayal in that role. What was your relationship with Gunnar Hansen? And
He became a very good friend. And he was just so generous with me. I mean, he gave me all sorts of encouragement and you know, and a few pointers. Not just about playing Leatherface, but about, you know, this business we call show. Yeah, he passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately. But he was, you know, he was a genuinely kind man and a great writer in his own right. He wrote a few books about the Maine coast where he lived. And you know, we would do horror conventions together and do panel discussions, and people would ask, you know, about you know, they would often get 3 or 4 Leatherfaces together, and we'd all answer these questions about what it was like to you know, play the character and where we found inspiration. And I always gave, you know, due credit to Gunnar and told him that you know, I ripped off everything he did as an actor as mercilessly as I could. Bill Johnson, I can't tell that story because it's kind of off color. Anyway, Bill Johnson once lamented having to follow Gunnar Hansen's performance. I don't think the writers of Texas Chainsaw 2, which I believe that was Toby and Kim Henkel, in the writing of it, I don't think they were as dedicated to the original as even we were, you know, so many years later.
so growing up as a young boy in Cleveland and growing up in the late 70s into the 80s and everything, how did you feel in 2013 when your Texas Chainsaw movie premiered on the big screen, and I believe it was #1 at the box office when it premiered and everything? How did you feel and your family feel to see you up on that big screen and say, look what the small town person has grown up to become?
I've never looked at myself as a small town person, I got to tell you.
Okay.
It was. I mean, it's shocking. It's a hard thing to wrap your head around, and I can see why it really causes a lot of people a lot of problems. I mean, the entertainment industry is full of people who were driven mad by success. it's a heady thing. I went back to that. I was driving by that old drive-in where I saw that movie back in 1981, and my movie was on the marquee. And of course, I stopped and took a selfie of that because, anyway. Yeah, it's a strange thing, but it's probably just the fact of making movies. When I was number 2 on the call sheet below Alexandra Daddario. And when you're on a call sheet for a big budget movie.
What was the budget on that movie, approximately?
Nobody really knows. Nobody really discloses. They say on a few of the websites that it was $20 million. I don't think it was that high. And that I don't want to get any of the producers in trouble for taxes or anything, but you never know. It was somewhere between. I think it was somewhere between 15 and 20 million. But when you're on that call sheet, there is an army of people all dedicated to make sure you do your job well and you are successful. There's people, everywhere. Every person on that set is there to make sure you can do your job and you do it well.
Right.
And so they treat you often in a fashion, certainly Americans should never treat one another like royalty. I mean, it is, and it can go to your head. I mean, I've seen it corrupt some young minds, but
I've seen the people in line at conventions to look for your autograph and get a photo and everything.
Yeah.
So there's, of course,
I'm speaking of other actors, yeah. I mean, it starts to mess with your head when, people basically treat you like you're golden. You can't let that go. You have to keep it in perspective. You have to remember, all right, well, we're spending $15 million. If I break my arm, it's going to be really expensive. Not just a broken arm. Or if I get sick, or if I can't do something, it costs tons of money. So anyway, they're focused on making money. It is a business.
I mentioned earlier about your making appearances in our area, so I do want to talk just briefly about. You have 2 upcoming appearances. You're coming back to northeastern Pennsylvania, Scranton.
And I'm looking forward to it.
October 30th, for our audience, October 30th, Dan will be at the Circle Drive-In.
One of my favorite places.
The Circle Drive-In, of course, with the COVID pandemic situation, has had a great revival in drive-ins throughout the country, which I know, Dan, you've talked about in the past, what a big fan you are of drive-ins. So, Dan, you will be there on October 30th. We're asking people to arrive 5 o'clock or so. You'll be available around 6 till about 8 o'clock to do some autographs. We'll socially distance and make sure everything is safe for everyone, but you'll have a chance, the fans will have a chance to come out and get some autographs, a couple of photos with you and everything. They're going to have a band playing, and then we're going to screen your Texas Chainsaw movie later that night. So we're encouraging people, our guests, fans, to come out and see you and all that on October 30th. And then a second appearance that you'll be making October 31st, Dan will be at the Stowbridge Line Railroad, in which we're going to have a Halloween train. And it's another event in which you'll have a chance to ride a train, the Stowbridge Lion, out into a field, a grove area where they're going to have a bonfire. They're going to have some beverages, adult beverages. They're encouraging people to wear costumes. And I believe at both places they're going to have a chainsaw that'll be signed by you and raffled off.
All right.
So we have, what better way to spend Halloween than with Leatherface, actor Dan Yeager, for that weekend here in northeastern Pennsylvania. So I just made that little comment. Dan, I know you've been at the Circle Drive-In before. What's your thoughts on being at the Circle Drive-In and maybe drive-ins in general?
Well, the Circle is, extraordinary. It's just it's fantastic. It's huge, and they take Halloween very seriously, which I admire in anybody. I don't know. Are we doing the haunt this year? Yes,
they are also doing a small haunt, a smaller version, but they will have the haunt as well.
Yeah, it's just a great place, and there's something about the drive-in experience it's really uniquely American cinema. yeah, it's just a different thing, and it's a shame. I mean, I grew up, going to the drive-ins in Ohio. It's a shame that most of them, I guess, their real estate became too valuable. But there's still a pretty healthy number of them still in operation all over the place. I live up in New York State, and I think we have 2 within a reasonable drive. So that's good. I mean, there was probably 50 at one time, but yeah, no, I'm a great supporter of independent cinema in general. And the drive-ins haven't been taken over by some large corporate interest to, take the soul out of them. I really kind of, mourn the loss of the concept of local theaters. It's changed film in a negative way. Back in the day when there was a local movie theater, curated programs by somebody who lived in the community, and strangers all gather in a dark room and sit there and have a cinematic experience together, and then they go out into the community together. Right. They live together, whether they know each other or not. Movie theaters had a tremendous impact on the cultural development of America. And other countries, of course, but it's a uniquely cultural experience, and we've kind of lost that. Everything's going on the internet. Right. Everything is on demand, and yeah, I don't know. I now know I'm an old fogey because I pine for the bygone days.
You can still wield that chainsaw
That's
very
right.
well. We know
That's
you
right.
can. So you mentioned the idea of culture and history and heritage in our area, and as I mentioned before, your intro, you've done many events in our area supporting and helping bring out people and tourism and things like that in northeastern Pennsylvania. We mentioned trains a little bit. I know you were at Steamtown a few years back. Mm-hmm. You made some appearances there. You'll be at the Stowbridge Line Railroad in Honesdale again. Last year you made a quick appearance there. This year you'll be spending a little bit more time. Tell me about trains. What do you think about trains? And
I
what
don't
do you
know.
think of?
I remember my father when we were just kids. He came home with a box of trains. And yeah, it was the whole thing. It was a box of fantasy because you could have little buildings, and it was a fascinating thing to a kid. And then in Columbia Station, Ohio, there's a certain rite of passage when you're grown up enough to walk to the train tracks. You could hear that train in the distance, a cold winter night. That sound is just, I don't know, it's very emotional for me. But I just love trains as they're machines of just incredible power and beauty. I mean, what's not to love about a train?
So we've had you make a couple of appearances again. You've supported our area a lot. I understand you're, in addition to some acting roles that you've been doing, some things here and there. You did a Sharknado appearance a few years back. Mm-hmm. We have a couple of copies of some of your other movies, The Drowning Man, a short movie, and things like that. You also do writing. Tell us a little bit about what you're writing, what you've been doing with writing, and what you hope to accomplish.
Well, mainly I've been writing screenplays.
Okay.
And one of the early lessons I learned about the film business is once you get a foothold somewhere, in the industry, stick with it. Mm-hmm. Don't try and reinvent yourself. And unless you really have to, I mean, it's possible, but it's not ideal. And so I kind of succeeded in the horror thing. So I love horror.
And there's a lot of people that do.
Yeah, it's great. And so that's the bulk of what I write. I do a little other, you know, essay writing and things like that, pithy, you know, online posts and whatnot. But yeah, the screenplays, I have four features completed, and I think I have 5 more in various states.
Well, hopefully we can make one of them in
I
our
know,
area, or
I know.
part of one at least.
Actually, I think that is how you and I first really started talking as friends. I remember we were doing like a zombie thing.
Yep, it was a zombie.
It was a zombie event, and I don't even know. I don't even remember where we were, but it was some beautiful area, and I was in the throes of writing this movie, which is called Zombie Bear Attack, and it had bears, and I thought, you know, and I wrote it to shoot it where I lived in California at the time, but I was looking around and I'm like, man, and I asked you, I said, do you have bears around here? And you said, of course. And I said, oh, I have an idea. We could shoot a movie here. And you were very, very encouraging.
Well, it's something, again, that it's been something that I've wanted to see happen in our area and for our audience and everything. I mean, we have a Hollywood actor who's been in multi-million-dollar movies sitting here telling us in northeastern Pennsylvania that we have the capacity, whether it's the unique attractions, the locations, the infrastructure and things, we have it in our area. We just need to make it happen. So hopefully we can do something here and make a feature film, because the area has a lot to offer.
It's slowly coming together. Yeah, the area has so much to offer. And the actual, you know, cinema infrastructure is coming about. You know, you want to go shoot a movie somewhere, how far is the nearest 10-ton grip truck? Right. That's all you need to know.
And tax credits have become a major...
Tax credits are great in Pennsylvania.
A major incentive.
Yeah.
Because your Texas Chainsaw was filmed in Louisiana?
Louisiana.
And
for
mainly
the tax credits.
Mainly because of tax credits.
Which I guess dried up for a while. I don't know if they're back yet. I hear different things. And
so for our fans that are watching in, they're Texas Chainsaw fans, and of course this will be for the Halloween season. Do you have a fun story you want to share with our audience, or a fun story or two about making the movie itself, something behind the scenes that they'd like to hear about? Like, what was it like? This is Leatherface himself telling us this.
First of all, making movies in general is just the best thing anybody ever came up with. And playing Leatherface, the chainsaw-wielding maniac, is about the best job anybody ever came up with.
Tell us why.
It was just so much fun. Well, you know, young men come up to me quite often and say, you know, what's it like to play Leatherface? I say, you know, if anybody ever offers to throw a skin mask on you and a leather apron and then cover you with blood and then hand you a chainsaw and let you chase some girl like you want to kill her, you should do it.
And they're going to pay you well, too.
They don't have to pay you. No,
oh, okay.
No, that's the secret.
Okay.
Yeah.
Enjoy the role.
You would do it for free. I would do it for free. Yeah. Yeah, no. And the actual shooting of the movie, you know, it was, oh God, there were so many, you know, it was just the best bunch of people I've ever worked with. For one thing, the cast and crew, everybody on that movie was just so, I mean, just a bunch of pros. And it made it, you know, just so easy. My one editorial contribution to the movie, and this won't spoil it for anybody, There's a scene where Leatherface is trying to find Heather, who's escaped, and she's run into the family cemetery, and he's creeping along and he's chasing her with the chainsaw. But then he gets to the cemetery and he realizes he lost track of her, and so he's trying to find her. He can't see her, and so he turns off the saw so that he can hear her. And that was my one editorial contribution to the movie, because I told the second unit director when we were shooting that, I said, I'm going to hit this mark, I'm going to turn off the saw. And then he was a little nervous. He said, well, you've got to cut into the into the coffin where she was hiding, but you see her hiding in it, so that doesn't spoil anything. You got to cut that. I said, well, yeah, I'm gonna restart the saw. And then he tickled me so much. He said, you can do that. Yeah, that's the first thing he teaches, how to start a chainsaw, by the way. But then, yeah, from that shot, it goes to Leatherface running after a couple of other ne'er-do-wells, and he has to jump over this little perimeter fence around the cemetery. And we were shooting that it must have been 4 a.m. Why we waited till the end of the night to shoot the running scene, I have no idea. Because I was in, leather apron, covered in fake blood, chainsaw smoke everywhere. And I said to Johnny Martin, the second unit director, who, by the way, has a fantastic movie coming out soon, Alone. Okay. You're going to want to see that, Bob. Okay. Anyway, we blocked out what we were doing, and I can't see in the mask. I mean, the mask is really, it makes it difficult. And so I said to him, Johnny, we better get this on the first take, because the second time, I ain't gonna make it. I just knew I wouldn't be able to clear that little fence. And bless his heart, he told the entire crew, he said, we're doing this in one. And he got everybody there, made sure everything was perfect. I paced off where I was going to have to jump, because by the time I get to the fence, I can't see it, and I didn't fall. So I consider that a triumph.
Leatherface is a rather large, imposing figure as a horror character. How tall are you, Dan?
6'6".
6'6", so you do fit the role very well.
I've got my heels on, too.
Well, we're pretty much out of time, but I do want to thank you so much for stopping by here in Scranton. Thank you for having me, Bob. It's always a pleasure. And I want to remind everyone again, please come out to the Circle Drive-In to have a chance to meet your favorite horror star, Dan Yeager as Leatherface. We're going to show his movie. Check out their website, and that's on October 30th. And, of course, Halloween night, October 31st at the Stowbridge Line Railroad. Dan will be making an appearance there. We'll have a nice train excursion, a costume party and everything, so check out the Stowbridge Line on their website for additional details. But most of all, Dan, I want to thank you for being a guest, but especially for believing in northeastern Pennsylvania, in wanting to make us be successful in making movies and films here in our area. And thank you for being my friend. Dan Yeager, thank you.
Thank you, Bob.